Welcome into another edition of the Good and Plenty podcast. I am your host, Jeff Goodman, and today we got a great show for you. I am returning the favor. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm having Mark Titus of The Ringer will be our guest today. I was on his podcast earlier this year out at his plush LA studios, and he will come on today to talk all things college hoops. First, please subscribe to the podcast. You can do that wherever you listen to your pods. iTunes, Stitcher. You can find me on CLNS Media. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. Also, watchstadium.com. But without any further ado, let's get right into it with The Ringer's Mark Titus.
Today's episode of Good and Plenty is powered by betonline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50 to receive 50% cash back on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50 to receive 50% cash back on your first deposit.
Now pleased to welcome in a guy that I've known a long time and had the enjoyable session of his podcast earlier in the season. That is The Ringer's Mark Titus. And Mark, thanks for keeping me waiting for like an hour. I know you do these podcasts, and literally I've been sitting here waiting for you to find a spot to do this podcast for an hour. So nothing like understanding the situation and paying it back, right?
Listen, you've been to the Ringer Studios. We're in Hollywood. This is Hollywood. Welcome to the business, Jim.
Good point.
This is how it operates out here. This is just how we do things. But yeah, I'm not afraid to do the home and home. I'm not Coach K. I'll have you come to our place, but I'm not afraid to go to your place either, Jeff.
Well,
so
I'm glad you're not doing the two for one.
Here.
Yeah, the two for ones. I'm not about those either. Let's do the home and homes. We'll continue the series. We should sign a long term deal here, right?
Do a neutral site at some point.
Vegas.
Sprinkle it in. Yeah.
I think we do the neutral site in Vegas next year.
Yeah, we let someone else. We let the CBS guys run, just like do an interview with just us two, and we put it on their feed. So it's like really neutral. It's like it goes on neither one of our.
That'd be a good idea. I wonder if they do that. They get way more hits than they get now.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean,
people finally listen to them for once.
Exactly. Nobody listens to Norlander or Parrish. I mean, listen, all it is Parrish, spewing stories. I started that podcast years ago with Parrish and Norlander, and it was entertaining. I think they need somebody to liven it up again. So I think you and I can do that.
You know what they need to do, Jeff, is they need to get Tim Miles fired. They need to have Tim Miles on there.
Oh man, I feel so bad. I had him on the podcast. I don't know if you listened to it, but it was really good because it was. I mean, how many guys are going to talk candidly about life on the hot seat? And he did it, and he agreed to come on, and it wasn't even like he said, "Hey, listen, keep it to this, this, and this. I don't want to talk about." It was just like whatever you want to talk about, and it was a straight conversation, kind of like what we're doing now. We're unfiltered, and the poor guy gets hit because he says some kind of tongue-in-cheek comment about I'll still be a millionaire if they fire me, and some, I think, probably old crusty veteran newspaper guy took a shot at him for it, which I thought, come on, man. Like, listen to the interview and understand that it was just two people talking, and he's giving you a different feel than anybody else would give. So respect him for that instead of hammering him for it. It was unfair.
And also, consider the source. I mean, Tim Miles is awesome.
Yep.
He's he has a track record of being just like a great, amicable guy, very easy to get along with.
Yep.
Very easy to root for. I mean, he knows the deal. Like Nebraska was supposed to be good this year. They're not good. That's part of this business. He seems fully aware of it. But I don't know. Yeah, I heard that comment. If it's coming from someone else, maybe another coach that's not as likable, that has a different history, then maybe we can take a shot at him. But no, I loved it. I thought it was great. It is kind of uncomfortable that for those guys to be in those positions, to hear someone so candidly be like, "Yeah, I know this business. I know," and they just got pasted by Michigan last night too.
I know. I feel terrible. I feel like I put the nail in the coffin. I just.
Yeah, I think his comment's good though too, because it is at the same time don't feel sorry for us, because there is that part of it too. I think sometimes people do feel very sorry for coaches, and I know they have families, and you got to move your families and lose. I never want to cheer for a guy to lose his job, but
Unless it's Billy Gillispie. Like, I didn't mind when Billy Gillispie lost his job. Like that. Honestly, there are very few.
Yeah.
There are very few I root for to lose their job. But when, and again, people don't understand this about me. When I go after a guy, generally it's going to be a coach that either was terrible at his job and there was no choice, that he's on the hot seat because he's going to get fired, whatever. Or number two, that they treat people like shit.
Yeah.
And Billy Gillispie and Bobby Gonzalez, and there's a few of them. There's a few of them that I've gone after hard, and people are like, well, you're biased. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm biased because of all this information that I've gotten over the years, hearing it from staff members or players or whoever, that he just, again, Billy Gillispie, like, to me, he's at Ranger Junior College right now. He shouldn't be coaching a kid ever again. Ever. At any level.
I don't disagree. I'm not laughing because I disagree with you. I just again, that's what I've always liked about you. Honestly, is we've talked about this privately. I think we talked about it on my podcast a little bit. Just college basketball media. You and I are the bad boys. We're not afraid to go after these guys. But it's just sometimes I say that sarcastically. I don't know if people pick up on it, but no, it does feel like people want to tiptoe around just speaking about coaches, and you don't want to you don't want to lose access to certain programs or coaches or whatever else. So some of these guys deserve to be called out, and it is, and to hear you like just calling guys out, it's great. It's refreshing, and you're not wrong whatsoever. So.
And a lot of these guys manipulate the media, like that's what they do, right? I mean, like, listen, I've said it. I've had guys where I remember. The first time I was at a Marquette Providence game, and I remember the first time, and I'm not sure this is manipulating, it's just being smart, right? The first time Tom Crean had met me, he comes up to me and he starts reciting stories I had written back when I was at Fox. And then after the practice, he has every player come up to me, introduce themselves, and shake my hands. And I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. Like, Tom Crean knows who I am. And again, smart. A way of working the media, and I think Crean has done a good job of that with the national media. I've had one coach, I won't say who this one is, but he sends me cookies. The only one sends me cookies every Christmas. And I just throw them in the trash. Like I do. I just throw – like my whole thing is I don't want to be that guy who's indebted to anybody. Like there's certain coaches that I have much better relationships with others, but ultimately – the bottom line is whether I like you or not, I'm going to be honest about the job you're doing. And, we're human. Like, we are human. We've talked about this before, that there's a human element to it, too. That, you could try to work me. You can try to spin me, manipulate me, whatever. And again, sometimes you fall for it. Sometimes you don't. And I think too many people in the media overall, not just college basketball, but I think in the media overall now, are in it, especially reporters who have to cover teams and news, are in it saying, well, if I don't kiss their ass or I don't put out what they want, I'm not going to get information from them. And my take is, you know what? Maybe it's because I'm older now. I don't give a shit anymore. I don't give a shit. If I don't break everything, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I'll break enough.
I want to go on record, though, just on the off chance any coaches are listening to this. I will take your cookies, so send them to me. I will definitely not throw them away. I would love to.
I'll forward them to you next year.
It's funny you brought up Crean. Crean called me one time. My favorite story of trying to be manipulated also involves Tom Crean was when I was like 24 or something. I just graduated college, just wrote my book, and I got hired at Grantland, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no journalism background, never written before in my life. Professionally, never really gotten paid to cover college basketball before. But the one thing I knew is I was passionate about Indiana basketball because I grew up in Indiana. I was passionate about Ohio State because I played there. So I just kind of leaned into that, and anytime I'd write about those things, I'd just be a little passionate. I was 24, snarky on the internet, all that kind of stuff. So when Tom Crean loses, I think by the time they lose to Syracuse, I was 25, 26, whatever, in 2013 when they had the number one team for most of the season. And then I just went all in on him, and I was like, all right, Tom Crean's got to go from Indiana. This is enough, whatever. And then he called me one time and I'll never forget it because my phone starts ringing and it's a Wisconsin area code, and my buddy's girlfriend is from Wisconsin. I don't have her number, But I know she's from Wisconsin. I was like, maybe something happened to my buddy, and she's calling me to get a hold of him. I don't know what's going on. So I answered it, and he's like, Mark, is this Mark Titus? I said, yeah. And he goes, Mark, did I do something to hurt you? And I was like, what?
Who is this?
What's
Yeah.
going on here? He's like, this is Tom Crean. And then we talked for 5 minutes. I kind of tried to be like a hard ass and not back down from the conversation. Yep. But then I hung up, and I was like, that kind of worked. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've really said too many harsh things about Creed since then. So
See, I go the opposite. Listen, now again, if a coach calls me up and he's got a case, I'm the first one to admit, like, I screwed up. I got no problem with that. I screw up plenty. But if you call up and you don't have a case and you come after me hard, honestly, it's just it's gonna get me going to whereas now I'm gonna be more apt to hammer you.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably is because you're older and you just that you have a lot of irons in the fire and you don't have to worry about any one
guy
iron.
Yeah.
That's it's like.
Listen, I didn't talk to John Calipari for 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years I never talked to him. And it was during the heyday of him being at the highest level for the most part and me moving from, Fox to CBS to ESPN. So I have learned that's the good thing. Now, when you're a beat writer, it's different. I mean, I couldn't be a beat writer because I wouldn't be talking probably whatever coach it was that I was covering. There's no way I would be talking to him. It would be a rocky up and down relationship.
Yeah.
All right, let's start. I did something today. We're recording this Friday afternoon my time. And I did something today on the most entertaining coaches in college basketball. It's ongoing. You can vote on it. Go to my Twitter page, @GoodmanHoops. You can vote on it. I seeded the top 16 most entertaining guys on the sideline. And it's like bracket format. I figured it's March 1st. Why not have some fun? And, just kind of have some – I had some, clips up there, videos of each guy, and a comment. I talked to referees about each guy and had anonymous, quotes on each. So, Sean Miller's is pretty good. I just tweeted out. Refs either love him or hate him. I like him. I'll admit when I'm working one of his games, I'm looking to see his armpits and how sweaty he is. It's nasty. Just funny stuff on each one, and so this is ongoing. So if I'm asking you who's going to win this thing, Bobby Hurley's the number 1 seed. Second round matchup. There are some good matchups. Calipari, Bruce Pearl, who don't like each other in the first round. Bob Huggins, Frank Martin, who are boys in the first round. Sean Miller and Mick Cronin, who don't like each other. So there's some good matchups here.
I think for me, what makes this interesting, and I love this idea, by the way, but what makes it interesting is that it's not who gets the angriest on the sidelines.
No.
It's the most entertaining, and there's more to being an entertaining coach than just losing your mind, because I feel like all of these guys, I mean, there are some, like Frank Martin and Fran McCaffrey certainly, maybe they can take it 10% higher when they're yelling at refs, but for the most part, every coach in the country, even the guys that are really lovable, when they get hot, they can get to that point. Yeah. They can get really hot at refs. So I need something that differentiates guys. I need some different things. I like Tom Izzo as the 3 seed. Maybe it's because Tom Izzo has the reputation for just doing great in these brackets anyway. But Izzo is a wild card. He can get hot. You see him yelling at refs. He's losing his mind. I mean, you mentioned this. I was reading your little write-ups on all these guys. He also does the thing. I love it how he throws his arm around the players as he's talking to them.
Yep.
He'll get in his players' faces, and when he gets in the faces, you never know, is he yelling at the player? Okay, now he's definitely yelling at the player, but is he mad at the players? A lovable yell? What is this? And then the low-key thing about Izzo that I love is he will also just wander onto the court, and the refs never tell him to get off the court.
They're not doing it because they like Izzo. They like him.
That's kind of entertaining. Once you notice that Izzo does this all the time, and you're watching these Michigan State games, it's hysterical to be like, is Tom Izzo 5 feet out on the court right now? What's going on? So I like Izzo as the 3 seed. I think Hurley as a 1 seed makes a lot of sense. Bobby Hurley, that makes a lot of sense. I would say the other thing that's interesting to me is I was working on this theory, and I guess this is the perfect time to bring it up. It's a little half-baked, but the time is right, I guess, talking to you. I have a theory about coaches that never wear jackets, that there's something a little more entertaining about them. And Bobby Hurley fits this mold. Not the guys that wear the jackets and then take it off. I mean, you come out straight and you have no jacket on. I think it's like the tie. I mean, Shaka Smart fits in that. He's not in your bracket, but he's pacing up and down. He's got the tie flapping around. It's the jacket's not holding it back. Something about those guys interests me. The no jacket. So
I just love
think
the
he did a good
Hurley.
job seeing it,
Yeah, I just love, like, listen, part of it with Bobby Hurley, too, is, like, you look at him and you're like, that's Bobby Hurley. Like, he hasn't grown up at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so amazing. You know, all the other guys are like coaches. You see them as coaches. With Bobby Hurley, you're watching, and then it hits you, and you're like, yeah, that's Bobby Hurley. He doesn't give a shit. And I love he puts his hands behind his back every time he argues with refs. Because he knows he can't, like, I think he knows I can't really trust myself. So the first thing I'm going to do is put my hands behind my back, so if anything happens, I don't get suspended for the year. One more break to tell you today's show is brought to you by The Athletic. If you haven't heard about The Athletic by now, you must be living under a rock. These guys have been crushing every element of sports coverage imaginable. Whether you're looking for specific local coverage with beat guys, sports discussed under a national lens, or anything and everything in between, make sure you take a look at The Athletic. No pop-ups, no ads, just high-quality content waiting behind every single click. Zach Harper, Frank Isola, Sam Amick, who is a guest on the show, Shams Charania, also a guest. They've got you covered in everything NBA related. If college hoops is more your style, then make sure you check out my guys Seth Davis, Dane O'Neill, Brian Hamilton. You can't get content like this anywhere else. 600 to 750 new articles a week. Who else is pushing out quality content like this? If you haven't signed up yet, take advantage of this deal because it's not going to last forever. Go to theathletic.com/Goodman and get 40% off your monthly subscription. That's a subscription for less than $3 a month just by going to theathletic.com/Goodman. Shams, Amick, Harper, Seth Davis, Dane O'Neill, Brian Hamilton, all for less than $3 a month. Sign me up. Sign yourself up too. Athletic.com/Goodman.
So my question to you is: Do we consider off-court stuff with this? Have you thought that far with the ground rules of do you like the coach who puts on a good press conference, for example?
No, I just go on the sideline.
Okay. I'm not saying you should. I was just curious.
Because it's a hard one.
I would agree.
That's a different deal. Like off the court, to me, like Mike Hopkins would be top 5 for sure. Like there's not, and this could be the next one I do. Maybe I'll do it next year in the offseason. Like the top 16, maybe run out to 64 coaches I want to have a beer with.
Yeah, there you go.
And like Mike Hopkins is one of those guys. I mean, Hurley might be number 1 there too.
Probably.
Right?
I would say the one snub that came to mind immediately as I was looking at your list was I think Roy is sneakily entertaining because the taking off of the glasses and the like Roy doesn't want to get angry because he gets a little dizzy.
Yeah, he does. He gets vertigo a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like kind of watching that back and forth when Carolina's not playing well, the secondary break's not working, Luke May's going 3 for 12, and you catch a Carolina game. Roy can get a little entertaining.
He can.
But I don't necessarily think he belongs on there. I just wanted to mention him as one that came to mind. So there you go.
All right, so the college basketball season, we're March 1st. This is March, if you haven't heard. This is March. I don't know how you want to say it. You want to say it? This is March. This is March.
And here we go.
Here we go. Anyway, this is March, and I'm curious to your take on like the season overall, you know, and kind of how it's been for you. I know you're out there in L.A. In your plush studios and your beachfront property.
Basketball world.
Yeah, your beachfront property. You moved from the Midwest. Now you're living the life, probably jogging in the morning, doing yoga, whatever. I don't know what the hell you do out there, but what's the season been like for you? How would you describe it?
So, I think this season has not been great, and I can't. I should preface it by saying again that my 2 favorite teams are Indiana and Ohio State. So,
no kidding.
I'm still working through like, is that the part of me that thinks the season hasn't been great, or has it actually not been great? But it just feels like it's Zion and everything else, and I know like people that are average fans think that's because the media is making it that way. But I as someone who's in the media but like kind of doesn't want to be in the media, I'm telling you, like I don't want to talk about Zion all the time and Duke, but there's just not that much. I don't think there are that many good teams. I think I think Duke is obviously one of the best teams. I think Virginia is up there with Duke, even though they've lost twice. That's more of a match. Like, I think Virginia is very much the same level as Duke as a national title contender. I think Gonzaga's up there. I think it's those three. And for me, like, Virginia and Gonzaga don't become interesting as like an overarching story until the tournament, until whatever they do in the tournament, because with Virginia, they lost to the 16th seed. So now that will be an interesting story if Virginia makes the Final Four, if they win the national championship. But we kind of have to wait for that to happen. And the same sort of thing with Gonzaga is like we were waiting for Mark Few to finally, 2 years ago they were close and they almost did it. And I think Gonzaga is good enough to win the title, but rolling through the WCC, I know their offense is great and they're a very good team. I'm not saying they're not. It's just
the league. It's
hard to get excited because we're just kind of waiting. We're like, is this going to be the team that finally wins the national title? And then other than that, like Tennessee has obvious flaws to me. Michigan, I really like Michigan and Tennessee, but they have obvious flaws to me. Kansas is a mess. Yep. Kentucky's coming around. Carolina they're both kind of coming around, but I don't know. That's just kind of where I sit on everything. Is there are really only three teams I get very excited about when I watch them play, and two of them I kind of have like the if we're talking like big picture storylines, it's like, well, we can't really talk about their story until the tournament happens. So then you just default to Duke, and no one wants that. Like all the fans are like, we get it, it's Duke, enough with Duke. So I don't know. I'm curious. Am I off base with that, or would you agree?
I think, like, again, part of the problem is you've got an elite team in Gonzaga that nobody has paid attention to since December, right? Like they're really good and they're fun to watch, but the difference this year and in previous years is at least you had a St. Mary's team that you could circle twice and say, all right, these are two games I want to see. I'm gonna figure out how good Gonzaga is and pay attention for at least two games and maybe three at BYU. This year it was legitimately zero. They're playing in Moraga, I think, this weekend, and nobody cares. Like nobody's paying attention. Nobody cares at all. The gap is that significant. I think. Listen, to me, and I'm going to ask you this now, like, what team are you, if you're going, you said three teams, Virginia, Duke, Gonzaga, I would put Kentucky in that group right now. I would. And I wrote them off after the first game. I was like, oh, my God, this is brutal. I can't believe I picked them to win the national title. I'm a joke. And now I'm like, you know what? I feel pretty good about them. Like, if you told me today, or I asked you today, who's that team you're riding without seeing the bracket, I might ride Kentucky right now. I might go back. Well, listen, they don't have to play Duke again. There's nothing that says they have to go up against Duke again. And honestly, I feel like even if they did, I know the mental aspect could be in there either way, right? Like, number one, you're remembering how badly you got spanked, and Duke comes out and says, like, we crush these guys, we're going to crush them again, and they do. Or number two, it's, we remember how badly we got spanked. We're not going to let this happen again. And they've got all that motivation, and they're a different team, and they beat Duke this time around. But I tell you, I just think they have the fewest amount of weaknesses when Reed Travis gets back of any team in college basketball.
I don't think that's horrible. I mean, 2 years ago we saw the Oklahoma Villanova thing. Oklahoma smokes Villanova at the start of the season, and then they meet in the Final Four, and Villanova returns the favor. Yep. So I don't. The Duke game, it took me a very long time to wash that out with Kentucky, but I think they've earned the right to have it washed out. I just think Kentucky, like, I don't know, like they beat the brakes off Tennessee and Rupp, but it's like people forget that they lost to LSU like 2 days earlier, 3 days earlier, whatever it was, in Rupp. And not that LSU is a bad team, but Kentucky feels a little up. They struggle with Arkansas a little bit. I think Kentucky's a very good team. I think if Kentucky won the national title this year, I would not be shocked whatsoever. I've definitely come around on them, but I don't know if I can get there yet. Putting it, I guess we'll wait this weekend, see what happens when they go to Knoxville, and then maybe I'll be a believer. But I don't know. I think for me, like, I really think Gonzaga might be the best team in the country,
even without Tilly.
I think they're better without Tilly. I think Tilly creates like too many chefs in the kitchen. I think like Mark Few,
I think Tilly's going to be back. I don't think he's going to be back as some significant contributor, but I think he could be back for the NCAA tournament as a 10 or 15-minute a game guy, which, like you're saying, if that's what he is and you bring him off the bench and he's just a piece, I think maybe.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I think that's good. If Tilly's coming out 10, 15 minutes, obviously you want him. I think the idea of Tilly's fully healthy, it's the Killian Tilly we all thought we were getting at the start of the season.
Not happening.
He's getting in the way of Brandon Clark and Hachimura. And yeah, I don't think he necessarily makes them better if you add him to that mix. I don't know. They're so good. And like you said, it sucks because no one's watching, no one cares. I'll be honest. I only know the last Gonzaga game I watched. Probably a couple weeks ago, but every time I watch them, I'm like, my God.
They're good.
I know they play, if people that aren't paying attention think, how good can they be? They're playing no schedule. They're not just beating the teams they're playing.
Pounding.
They are, wiping the floor. Yeah. It is unbelievable what they're doing to these teams.
With decent teams. I mean, again, the one thing with the WCC is it's definitely, they don't have that number 2 team, but the middle is way better. Like USD, USF are much better than they've been. So at least you got 4 or 5 teams that they shouldn't be beating the shit out of, and they are.
Yeah, the USF would win the Pac-12 probably. I don't know if I'm joking.
All right, so there's a good transition. You were at the UCLA USC game last night.
I was.
Barn burner. First of all, how many people were there? Legitimately, did you count them?
Okay, so it was packed, and I'm not even kidding.
Come on.
I was just as shocked as you were.
What?
It was absolutely packed. The place was packed, and I have no idea why. It was the last game of the season at Pauley against the rival, so maybe that fed into it. But I was shocked as well. It was packed. It was loud. It was a great environment. I was looking around. I was like, I don't know. What's the problem? What's wrong with UCLA? This seems good to me. And then I started asking around, and they're like, no, we get 5,000 people to all these games. This is definitely an anomaly.
Maybe with Steve Alford gone, people have started to show up again. I don't know. I mean,
I don't. I think it was the USC game. It had to have been that. They just wanted to salvage something. It's been a bad year, and they just wanted something to hold on to. And it's like, if we beat SC, it'll all be worth it. And then they did, and it was a great game. And Jalen Hands,
oh my God, that shot
accidentally turning into the best player in the country the last 2 games.
So as you're sitting there, I know you have to be thinking of who the right guy is. Who's the next coach? I assume you guys talked about it a little bit throughout the game, or. Who's your guy? Who do you think they should hire, and who do you think they will hire?
I can't believe I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
Delete this. Don't run this on your pocket. Delete this part. I think I talked myself. I think I was like, if I'm Tony Bennett, I actually do like this. I think Tony Bennett actually would like. But the problem is always the money, Jeff. See, this is the problem that I run into when I cover this stuff because I don't know all the finances of all these schools, and I don't know. What their I've come to learn that UCLA does not prioritize basketball as much as they probably should, and they're not willing to back up a dump truck to get the coach that they want. So there's those sorts of hurdles to jump into. But I got to say, what I saw last night, the arena, the Pauley Pavilion is awesome. The campus is awesome. Westwood is everything about it is awesome. I'm like, why the hell I want to go back in time and go to UCLA? I don't understand why I went to Ohio State.
The campus is so good.
It's so good. It's
I know.
so good. But then is that to their detriment, though, becomes the question. If I'm a student there, do I really want to get into the gym and get shots up? Or do I just want to walk around and
look at girls? Yeah. No, listen, that's fair. And I do think UCLA is going after Tony Bennett. I think that's who they want. I think they're going after him. What I don't understand is if he's already said no, why they haven't already started to move on this thing.
Right.
But again, Fred Hoiberg, if you're going to move on it, Fred Hoiberg's probably already your guy. If he's your guy, you probably already hired him at this point.
Yeah, that's what's weird for me too. It's what's the Hoiberg thing? Because it's so what's keeping them from hiring him now? And
nothing.
I have not got a good answer for that. I would just say I love Virginia. Virginia fans. I've been on the Virginia bandwagon I've been through the ups and the downs. I'm still a believer in Virginia even after they lost to the 16th seed.
Me too.
So I preface it by saying that I don't want Tony to leave Virginia. I am not trying to ruffle feathers, anything like that. I'm just saying I think there's this perception if you're not in the UCLA, if you're not plugged into what's going on at UCLA, you think there has-beens. They won a bunch of titles with John Wooden forever ago. Who really cares? That's an irrelevant program. They're a dying blue blood. No one actually wants that job. I don't think that's the case after seeing it. After being there and kind of they rolled out the red carpet for us too. We got to go. We got a little tour of the facilities, all that kind of stuff.
Wow, look at this.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe they're trying to hire me, Jeff. Maybe that's what was going on. They were.
You couldn't.
Yeah.
Hey, you couldn't get Chicago State. How are you going to get UCLA?
Look what happened to Chicago State. They're one of the worst teams in the country.
Hey, give them time. Give the Irvin family time. They're going to get players out of that program. We both know that.
Yeah, I know.
I would listen. The thing I would say about UCLA, and my first recommendation was Bobby Hurley, which looks terrible now because obviously back then they were really hot and doing well on December 31st, and now they've fallen off. To me, it's twofold now if I'm UCLA. Number one, I wait and see what happens with Luke Walton. I would assume he's going to be fired right after the season at this point. If they don't make the playoffs, it's like a certainty he's gone. And I saw him in Boston a few weeks ago, and he just looks worn down. It almost looks like, honestly, he may not care that much at this point because it's a shit show there. So if that happens, number one, if you're UCLA, can you hire an Arizona guy? I think you can because he's the son of Bill Walton, number one.
Right.
Number two, does Luke Walton want to coach in college? I've been told maybe not. Number three, does he wait for Arizona? Does Arizona tell him, hey, sit tight here. We don't know what we're doing with Sean Miller. Wait till the end of the season. Wait till potentially the trial in late April and see what happens there. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces with that. But if you don't go Luke Walton, and I didn't think this guy would work because I think he's got some like Ben Howland-ish in him in terms of like how he coaches, but he's way better with people, I think, than Ben Howland is Chris Beard at Texas Tech. Why not?
Well, he hates his walk-on, so I have a problem with that.
He loved one of them. A couple of years ago at Arkansas Little Rock, he loved this one kid who came with him from Division III. I'm going to get you the info. I did a story on the kid.
Right.
He went with him from like McMurray to – he went like D3, D2, took him with him at Arkansas Little Rock and played him. And now this kid's like in the oil industry doing something and like making money. Like kid's awesome. Kid's awesome.
No kidding?
I'll get you the info. Yeah.
I was just talking about the Baylor, the oop, where he ripped his,
Oh, he killed him.
Dribble and block out.
Killed him.
And then he killed.
But come on, if you had done that, Thad might not have killed you, but he would have said something to you.
He would have said something. I would have said, "Dad, I get like this will never happen again in my life." He could have kicked me off the team, and I would have been like, "It was totally worth it." Nonetheless, I don't care.
Right.
Like I will show that clip for the rest of my life.
Good point. Good point.
No, I think that the struggle with the UCLA thing is the stylistic fit. You need someone that gets LA. LA as someone who is a Midwesterner who's been out here now and can kind of see it. There is very much a difference, and I'm not breaking news here that LA is different than the Midwest. I mean, like, you feel that at UCLA, though. I mean, like, I think like a Ben Howland, Steve Alford, they never really fit you don't have to be Rick Pitino, you don't have to be like full on like car salesman LA type, but I don't know. You just kind of have to be in tune with what's going on, and I know that kind of goes counter to what I say about Tony Bennett, but like Tony Bennett feels in control of everything. Like there's just something about it. I don't know. I started talking myself into it. I was like,
would the style work of not
style.
scoring?
Yeah,
that's the question. Would that style offensively work out there, Mark? Now, if you're winning, you're winning.
That's a good question.
If you're winning, I don't think anybody cares.
Just win.
Right.
That's all people really care about.
I would agree.
But he's handsome. I think that like he's handsome. That's going to play well in LA.
Mark Titus in the podcast on Tony Bennett.
Very handsome.
He's handsome.
That'll play well. He wins and he's handsome. That's all you need. That's all you need. That's all you ever need. Just win and be handsome. That's my new mantra.
Oh man. Well, you could have done that maybe. Well, one of the two at Chicago State.
Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned Indiana earlier, being an Indiana guy. I wasn't going to hit you on this at all, but because most of the blame I gave early on in the streak for Archie Miller this year was on Tom Crean and the fact that Archie didn't inherit enough, right? He inherited Juwan Morgan and really nothing else. And then I started to say to myself, like, okay, yeah, no doubt he didn't inherit enough, but they shouldn't be losing 10 of 11 or 11 of 12, whatever the hell it was. Like, that was abysmal. So I put some of the blame on Arch for sure. I put some of the blame on Crean for sure. How do you break it down? If you were to break down like the pie chart of blame on Indiana basketball, how are you doing it?
I think I was hesitant to blame Arch. I'm an Arch guy. I played for him at Ohio State. I love him to death.
Yep.
But I'm also I have a job to do here. So I think I was very hesitant to blame Arch as well. But yeah, like you get to a certain point, you can't have excuses at Indiana where you're losing 11 of 12 or whatever. I lost track. I'll be honest. I don't even know what it ended up being. 12 of 13, 14 of 50. Who knows at this point?
It's terrible.
When you're losing that, like you got to figure something out. I would say this though, like I don't think the players ever quit on him, and that was a positive sign to me. And it sounds preposterous because they were losing all these games, but it really felt like they just don't know how to win. Like they were still playing hard, they were still in games. They would be down 7 with 6 minutes left, and you're like, you're in this. Just play some like we can do this. We can, and then they never do, and they lose. And you're like, okay, let's do it next game. And then maybe the next game they get blown out, but then the game after that they're close and they're there. And it was just like I think there's a chemistry issue with the roster itself. I mean, when you got Zach McRoberts is kind of like a key piece, but he's not really a key piece. You got Zach McRoberts and Romeo Langford on the same team, and they're both sort of played significant minutes. There's something off there, you know, like with the makeup of those guys and how they got to IU and what they're trying to accomplish in their careers. So I am patient with Arch. I think everyone deserves like to flush out the old regime and get their new thing in, and then kind of make their case there. But I think the biggest problem with IU was that Romeo was hyped like nothing we've ever seen.
More than he should have been. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was unbelievable. I was there. You know, I was obviously close with Greg when he was coming out of high school, and the stuff I was hearing about Romeo, because my parents still live in Indiana. My dad's still very plugged into Indiana high school basketball. My dad would just text me all these things that are happening with Romeo Langford's high school games and all these people waiting outside to see him and wearing their candy stripes in the front rows of his games and stuff. It sounds like unlike anything even Greg Oden experienced or Mike Conley or Eric Gordon or any of these guys. And he was hyped like he was going to be the savior, and an unfair expectation was put on him. And now you realize like one freshman can't necessarily do it all, and that's kind of part of it too. But yeah, I will say though, like literally everything that could go wrong for Indiana has. They've had injuries, they've had suspensions, they've had they can't shoot. They've you know, some of it has been bad coaching, some of it's been bad. Like the players have actually not played hard in a couple games. It's a whole comedy of errors, but I don't know. I am at a certain point though. You do run out of excuses. It's like I'm sorry, Arch. I don't know what else to say. You gotta win it.
No, you can't. I think Arch is a hell of a coach. I worry now about Indiana because next year it's going to be worse, and that's year 3. So he's going to go into year 4 with a ton of pressure on him. Like he's going to have to go to the tournament in year 4, or else Indiana fans are going to be saying like, get rid of him.
Oh, I think they're already saying it.
Which is crazy. I mean, it's year 2.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy.
But next year is going to be worse unless you get the Hunter kid back if he's healthy. Who knows? You know, I don't think they know whether he's going to be healthy enough to play next year. He was a top recruit this year that didn't play. They're going to lose their 2 best players. So how do you look at it and say they're going to be better next year? They're not. They're not most likely. So year 4 is going to be critical, certainly, for Arch. So big news out of Ohio State today. Caleb Wesson suspended for indefinitely for, I don't know. I don't know how. He'll be back for the Big Ten tournament. That's what I was told.
We don't know, but we probably know. I mean,
we know.
Usually, we probably.
Well, generally, listen, let's face it. Generally, in these situations, when you read between the lines, and I'm not saying I know 100%, but it has to do with usually a failed test of some sorts.
Yes.
So,
allegedly.
Allegedly. That's right. But it was so funny. Early in the year, somebody tweeted out, one of the local guys, newspaper guys, and I think he was asked the question. He didn't bring it up, but the question was like, should Chris Holtmann be fired or something crazy? It was the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because if you look at that roster right now, like Chris Holtmann's done an unbelievable job having the Buckeyes in position just to get in the NCAA. Like if he gets them in the NCAA tournament, that's like one of the better coaching jobs in the country this year.
It would be objectively funny if, I mean, like, obviously I don't want to hold fired. I'm not being serious. But it would be objectively funny if he was fired, and it was basically Keita Bates-Diop got 2 coaches fired by sitting out Thad's last year.
Yep.
And then he was supposed to be a senior on this year's team and went and left early to go to the NBA.
I didn't think about that.
Left the hole. Yeah, that'd be hilarious. Keita, thank you for firing 2 coaches, basically.
And as good a kid as it is, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Keita's like
the best kid in the world.
Yeah.
Too nice a kid. All right, so last thing before I let you go, I'm going to hit you with a hard one here.
Okay.
Does Thad Matta, your former coach again in college basketball?
Division I, you mean?
Well, I don't. Yeah, like I'd love to see. Like Thad, you never know. Like he could legitimately, right? He could coach like Division II, like on the beach somewhere, and nobody ever pay attention to, or
exactly.
high school. He could coach high school, and it wouldn't shock me because he doesn't care about. He's the one thing I love. I've said this before to people. I'm not sure I said it on this pod. There are some guys that are self promoters, right, and call and send cookies and whatever, and then there's Thad, who's like the ultimate non-self-promoting coach ever. Like, he would never call you. I would call him at times, but, like, just doesn't care about it. Doesn't and
to his detriment
yes,
at times. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say this. If we're talking, because I assume the real question people want to know is, like, will he coach at a relevant school
Correct.
again? Will he coach,
could have had Ole Miss, maybe.
Yeah.
Could have had Butler a couple years ago.
He told me he actually was interested in Georgia when he went down there to visit. Because the story that got leaked or someone started looking at his terms with his contract, where if he has to be basically looking for employment to continue to get his buyout. So everyone was like, oh, so I'm sure he just went to Ole Miss in Georgia just to kind of satisfy that part of the buyout. But he told me, he was like, I got down there and I love Georgia and I was very close to taking the job, but I think his wife talked him out of it. So in talking to Thad, first of all, he's in a great spot. He's still getting paid like $3 million a year to not work still, which is great. That'd be cool. I don't think he's like in any hurry to get back on the sidelines. I get the feeling, and I need to preface it again because I got in trouble with this, saying this on one of my podcasts, and the local media in Indianapolis started calling him about it. And then he called me and was like, what the hell did you do, Mark? And so I had to fix some stuff. So I'm prefacing that anybody at the Indianapolis Star listening to this, do not call Thad Matta about this. This is just my own conjecture. I think he would take the Butler job if it ever opens up in the future. I don't think he's scheming for it. I don't think he's, trying to. I don't think he's very happy with his situation. But the man, like, he goes to all these Butler games. He met his wife at Butler. She's a Butler grad. His daughter's going to Butler. Both of his, I think his youngest daughter is a senior in high school. I think she might be going to Butler as well. They live right by Butler's campus. He's all about Butler. I just, like, knowing him personally, I envision a scenario where 5, 10, however many years down the road, I don't know, the Butler job opens up for some reason. He thinks to himself, he's like, yeah, I miss it a little bit. I love Butler. My life won't change that much. I can stay in the same house I live in now. All my kids are gone, whatever. I could see him taking that job. That's the one job I would not be surprised whatsoever if it opens up again. But again, he's not scheming for it. He doesn't want it. Leave the man alone. That's just my own theory.
Well, when they run Brad Stevens here out of Boston with the Celtics, maybe they could co-coach. Brad Stevens goes back to Butler.
Brad Stevens is from Indiana. I don't know if people knew that. He's from Indiana. Brad. What about Brad Stevens at UCLA? Let's get that going.
Oh my God! You know what? Like years ago, I think they went. They did. They went after him and Shaka. I think years ago, and obviously, I've said it. I think honestly, I would not be shocked if Brad Stevens ends his coaching career at Butler.
Ooh, that would be awesome.
He loves them so much. He loves Butler.
That would be awesome if Brad is the head coach of Butler and Thad's his lead assistant.
Like they could, like, if there's any two people that could do that, it'd be those two. Because Thad's got no ego. He wouldn't care.
Exactly.
He'd probably rather be a top assistant, so he doesn't have to deal with making the recruiting, all the trips and calls. He could be the Larry Shyatt for Brad or somebody.
Yeah, I got to get on that staff if that happens. I'm on that staff.
You should get on that staff.
That would be awesome.
That'd be a hell of a. You bring some personality to that stuff. I don't know.
That would be great.
Maybe too much.
That would be great. I would do all the press conferences. Like Brad and Thad would have me be doing the.
They don't want to do them.
Where at halftime I'm the one talking to the media, and then we do it's supposed to be like a quick hitting 2-question thing, and I'm doing like a 30-minute interview.
They come back out for the second half. You're still there.
I'm just still talking about God knows what.
Oh, man. All right, well, listen, I really appreciate you doing this, even if you did, hold me up an hour, and now I got to run and take my wife and daughter to the airport, and hopefully, I get them. If they don't get to Florida on time, I'm blaming you on.
My fault.
Yeah, it's completely your fault. Mark Titus of The Ringer, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. And you're going to hit the beach now? Like
I am going to hit the beach. I'm gonna chill out for until the tournament starts, basically.
All right. Where are you going for?
We got a few weeks.
Where are you going for conference tournament?
We might be going to Vegas for the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 is such a mess. It's hysterical.
I want to do that.
I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, no.
I might be in Vegas. Yeah.
I tried to sell that, and I could sell it. I could do it if I wanted to do it, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm going to go Big 12 for quarters and then go Big 10, I think, and just see at least more teams that are relevant. But I'm with you.
Yeah, right.
I'm with you. Pac-12, and anytime you can get me to Vegas and get me to the Cosmopolitan, usually I'll take that. But this one, I'm going to try to do my job and see more teams that matter. And
see, my job is to chase the comedy in the sport, which is Pac-12 is so the cherry on the sundae of Cal beating Washington last night is just like
oh my God, it really can't. It really can't. Yeah. All right, listen, enjoy your day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, man.
Hey, sports fans, I'm Coach Nick of the B-Ball Breakdown podcast on the CLNS Media Network. I break down the NBA from a coach's perspective and have some of the best basketball minds join me weekly to discuss the latest NBA news and what's truly going on the court. Subscribe to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast wherever you get your podcasts or find us on clnsmedia.com. It's a great conversation. You in?